And that's how, with a few minor adjustments, you can turn a regular gun into 5 guns.
Hey Exiles, Chronic Painless here with another update to my Blade Vortex build guide for patch 3.25. In this video, I want to go over how I optimize my BV to get it Sanctum ready. Right? Obviously, the Forbidden Sanctum is very different from the rest of the game in terms of what you need to bring to the table in order to achieve success. And so I'm just going to talk through the various points, breakpoints, and areas of focus. Well, first things first, right? You gotta pump the damage up, right? The key thing for me, at least, is I want to be doing so much damage that the bosses are getting off, at most 1 attack, certainly not a 2nd attack, right? That 3rd floor boss, I don't want them to get off anything. I don't want Lycia to get to her lightning circle phase, right? We are going to make sure that we're just pumping that damage so that we can guarantee that those bosses will be burned down before we have to actually worry about dodging any of their more difficult to dodge attacks. Right? And so one of the ways we do that is, of course, pain attunement. Right? This keystone is going to give us a lot more spell damage when on low life, and since we are going to the Sanctum, we don't really need that much life. I found through my testing that having about 1200, 1100, 1200, especially right if you have the Bastion of Elements backing you up, right, is more than enough HP to tank all of the little random chip damage that you might take here or there. And as long as you're avoiding the huge telegraphed slam attacks, you will have no problem tanking through the little bits of damage that the rest of the Sanctum is going to be throwing at you, such as volatile anomalies or mines or things of that nature. And in order to guarantee that low life status, I'm going to use an arrogance support on one of my heralds, right? Effectively doubling its reservation, taking it from 25 to 50%. However, it does get a little more efficient as it levels up. And so I like to, take a couple levels off from that maximum just to be extra safe and make sure rounding errors aren't causing me to actually lose the buff there. The next most important thing is AOE. Right, you want a lot of AoE when you're going into the Sanctum for a couple of reasons. First, right, you want to be covering as much area as you can when you're blinking in, when you're throwing your Veil BVs, right? Making sure that you are closing the gap to those guards gets that much easier when your BV has a little more reach, and so getting that AoE is going to help quite a bit. And the other reason is that we want to make sure we have at least 3.1, 3.0 might get you there. AoE radius, right? Especially when I get rid of my extra AoE from the Ascendancy, right? The Heart of Destruction. When I actually do proc the convergence, my AoE is going to go down a little bit. We're still going to be over that critical threshold. And I believe that's a critical threshold because, as you'll see when I fight Lycia in that final room of the Sanctum, there will be a specific setup that I'll go for where I'll start on one side of her, blink to the other side of her, and as long as my BV is big enough, it will hit her the entire time while keeping me safe. And the last thing I like to focus on is reliability. Right now, this is not a number that you can get in your POB. This is more of a feel thing, right? This is just sort of looking at the actual calcs page and seeing, what of this is conditional or not, right? And so that is why you will see me using, for example, the Ralakesh Impatience Boots, right? These are going to guarantee my charges being up all the time. I won't have any ramp up time at all, relying on, generating power charges on crit in order to get my damage going, right? As soon as I start the fights, I'm going to be at my maximum damage output, right? I have the Spectres to give me the Zealotry, right? And that will, while not having 100% uptime, is reliable on the bosses because they will definitely die in the 7 seconds that I have the buff active for. Right? That's why we're also doing, we don't want to even deal with necessarily like an Arcanist brand setup or anything like that, right? I'm going for just a constantly applied curse through the Blasphemy, and then another curse coming from my Glove Implicit on the Rim Sorrows here, right? And so the key is we just don't want any part of our damage to be conditional, right? We want to know exactly what we're getting all the time so that you can calibrate, right, which afflictions you can afford to take, you know, how many attacks you're going to need to dodge, right? All of that, you want to be a very much known quantity with as little variation as possible. So we don't want to use, you know, certainly not inspiration, right? That is the kind of thing that can easily just fall off kind of without warning when you're not necessarily paying attention, and suddenly you lose a bunch of your damage. And so, you know, what we want to prioritize as soon as we get, you know, enough damage, enough AoE, enough speed, is keeping it reliable, right? Reliability is the key to the Sanctum, because we want to make sure that everything we're doing is consistent and repeatable, right? That's the Sanctum is a roguelike, and that means that, you know, it's slightly different every time, but a lot of it is the same every time, right? The rooms are more or less the same. The guards are going to have the same amount of HP, you know, with the minus the afflictions and whatever, right? But the afflictions are, you know, it's not even like they have magnitude values they can roll, right? Everything is very regimented and constant. And so when that is the case, right, it behooves us to do the same and therefore get, you know, very consistent and expected results as we progress through the Sanctum. Some other little points here. Definitely want to make sure that I'm immune to corrupted blood, just straight out, right? Don't want to rely on a flask for this, because if I do get corrupted blood from some random rare monster, right, it could take my HP away quite quickly, and I clearly don't have very much to work with here. And so it is pretty important to just get this straight out immunity, right? Even if it means getting a not particularly exciting jewel, right? This one, I got a bunch of lightning res, which I clearly needed. And so this was good enough to slot into the build there, certainly. Another small change from the general mapping setup that might not be super obvious if you're just glancing at the tree here is that this mastery has changed, right? We don't need the cannot gain charges that we would use for T17s. We don't need the cannot be shocked that we would be running in maps if we didn't have the Storm Shroud. Instead, we're just going to be able to go for this, right? And this is even better with the Ralikesh, because of course we actually will have those endurance and frenzy charges in addition to the power charges. Another mastery that is sneakily strong in the Sanctum is this critical mastery here that gives 50% increased effect of ailments inflicted with critical strikes, right? Of course, I have 100% crit, none of which is conditional, except of course for the Zealotry, which will, you know, have 100% uptime when I need it. So we will always be taking advantage of this. And though POB doesn't give you any credit for it for whatever reason, if you actually, you know, try doing these Sanctums, putting this on, taking it off, you'll see big difference in the shock values that will actually be applied to the bosses. Until you just get crazy amounts of damage. I might even be at the point where I don't really need this anymore, even if they do have the afflictions. So that might be something that I would consider getting rid of once you get to this level. But, you know, before you're even getting close to that, right, this is very, very high value. It makes huge Shaper of Storms shocks happen. And, you know, even if it's just giving you the extra minimum shock, it's still quite beneficial. But most of the time, right, it'll be pushing you towards that 50% maximum shock. One last little mastery here. This is a bit of a cheeky one, right? I love getting this in the Sanctum, the 25% chance to open chests when you cast a spell, right? It's annoying when you're running through some of those decrepit cellars and things like that, right, to run and go click on the chests. But if they happen to open while you're fighting the monsters, you know, you can certainly pop over there and grab a few coins, right? This also helps in the 5 chest reward rooms, right? You can kind of stand in the middle there, spam a few BVs, and the chests should open up. I think that just about covers the tree. As far as the rest of the gear, right? We talked about the Ralakeshes. Of course, Carcass Jack, going to be the king chest piece in the Sanctum. Massive AoE, gives you the energy shield that you need in order to spam your BVs at the start of each room, right? One of the slightly dangerous parts of the Sanctum can be, you know, when you're in an Infernum, for example, right? If you don't have a decent amount of energy shield and your Eldritch Battery going, right, you might have trouble getting up to 10 blades very quickly. But thankfully, you know, with the shield here and the Carcass Jack, I do have enough energy shield that I'm able to spam my way up to 10 blades before the combat actually starts. Heat Shiver, right? This helm is really not that good for mapping. I've talked about this a bunch in other videos, so I'll try to keep it short. But basically, right, we don't usually care how much damage frozen targets are taking, right? If they're frozen, they're going to stay frozen until they're dead. So if we're in a map, right, it's going to save us a trivial amount of time to kill frozen monsters a tiny bit quicker. However, in the Sanctum, killing something a tiny bit quicker can be the difference between, you know, that boss getting off its second attack or not, right? And so when you're just trying to absolutely pump the DPS, the Heat Shiver, especially if you can pick up one with a power charge implicit, is going to be the best way to do that. And, you know, the Sanctum is one of the few areas where you still get really palpable benefits from the Heat Shiver, right? We really do care how fast those bosses die, because even though they're frozen, right, they're still moving because, you know, they can't be fully slowed. Also going to want to make sure that we replace our Corrupted Blood Flask with a Poison Immunity Flask, right? It is possible to get poisoned by a rare mob here, even if it doesn't hit you. And so, you know, having the ability to take that off quickly is going to be very good to have. All right, now let's talk Afflictions. I'll start with the majors, though these aren't worth discussing too much, but it is worth saying that I would not really hesitate to take the one that allows monsters to petrify on hit, right? You need to build up a couple stacks of petrify before it actually does anything, and I'm not going to be getting hit a couple of times in a row, one would hope, and so I will take that without too much fear. And the other one that I would take, obviously, with no hesitation would be Cannot Recover Resolve if I'm running the Gilded Chalice, because that is already the case. The rest of the majors are pretty bad, if not run ending, or at least, you know, reward killing, right? Especially the one that makes rooms unknown. This is much worse than room types are unknown, right? Don't be confused, because rooms unknown means that you will actually not see the rewards nor the afflictions. So that one is a pretty big disaster if you don't have the all-seeing eye, of course. And the other ones, like non-unique relics, have no effect. Unassuming brick, right? Those are basically going to negate the upside of the merchant strat. Moving on to the minor afflictions, there are a few real categories here. I was going to put this into like a tier list of danger, but it's really hard to do that because some of them are only dangerous in certain contexts, only dangerous at lower versus, you know, as opposed to higher budget levels. But really there are kind of conceptual categories that I would separate the afflictions into. And the first of those are the ones that I would, you know, avoid like the plague, right? These are the ones that make you have a very bad time. That is the Deceptive Mirror, right? The one that is making you not taken to the room that you select necessarily, right? You know, you can go to the room you select, but you also might not. And so, you know, what's the point of going into the Sanctum and trying to get rewards if the game is just going to say, nope, you don't get that. So that seems like a no-brainer to just avoid that at pretty much all costs, unless it's, you know, very, very late in the Sanctum. And, you know, your choices stop mattering because you've already gotten the good rewards. And speaking of rewards, right, the next one that I would absolutely not take under virtually any circumstances is the Golden Smoke. The rewards are unknown, right? What are we even doing in the Sanctum if our rewards are unknown? I don't know. It's just, you know, obviously you can take this if you have All-Seeing Eye, but before you have that, this is just going to be a disaster, right? It's going to hide the merchants. It's going to hide the divines. It's just an absolute run killer, so I would avoid it at all costs. And then there are a few that are very detrimental to the merchant strat specifically, right? And of course, the number one is the merchant offers only one choice, right? No point in getting all these additional merchant choices if she's only going to be offering one choice, right? It kind of kills the guaranteed nature of the Mirror of Fortune, right? Because no matter what, there's going to be the temporary boons in the pool still, right? You can't keep all of them out all the time. And so having that merchant only offering one choice is going to basically be a strat killer, right? You're still going to be able to finish the Sanctum, but, you know, the chances of actually getting those big juicy rewards is going to go down substantially. Slightly less impactful, right, is of course the merchant having 50% fewer choices, right, or reduced effect of your non-unique relics, right. Those are going to, of course, cut her choices in half virtually. However, it can still get to a point there where if you truly have every boon and a couple temporaries, you can still more or less guarantee the Mirror of Fortune, right? But that makes it much, much harder to do that. So definitely avoid those if you can help it. And of course, merchant prices being increased, right? As good as the infinite scaling of merchant price reduction is, right? Obviously losing that is, feels infinitely bad sometimes. Well, not quite, but you get the idea, right? You don't want that unless you have, an overwhelming amount of coins and it's very late on in the actual sanctum. The next category are ones that are not in and of themselves dangerous, but just make it much more likely that you will get one of the 5 run killers, right? And these are the ones that potentially cause you to get, random or unknown afflictions, right? There is the Accursed Prism, right? What I call the Yo-Dog affliction, the affliction that gives you afflictions when you get afflictions, because I heard you like afflictions. Then there is the Purple Smoke that will hide afflictions on the map, right? This will make all of the afflictions unknown in the Sanctum. And so that means that, you are at risk of, at any time, picking up one of the mega dangerous ones. Poisoned Water, right? The one that makes you gain an affliction when you use a fountain is really much less dangerous, right? Because you're never going to be forced to use a fountain, and you're not going to be losing out on a tremendous amount of value by not being allowed to use fountains. If you are running the Gilded Chalice, right, you can't recover anyway. And if you're doing the merchant maxing strat, then you're very likely to find yourself in a situation where getting a random boon is dangerous because you've removed so many boons from the pool that you don't want to see the Mirror of Fortune anyway, because maybe you haven't seen the Divines yet. And so, I pretty much take that one without too much hesitation, even though it seems like it might, be the kind of random affliction that we want to avoid. You're really not forced to actually get those random afflictions at any point. The next affliction that I want to talk about gets its own category, and that is the Fiendish Wings, the one that makes the monsters not be able to be slowed and actually increases their attack, cast, and movement speed. Now, the reason this one gets its own category is that even though it is very similar to ones that don't make the Sanctum less rewarding, but just make it easier to fail, right? This one has no counter, right? There is no traps are slower to negate the traps are faster. There's no monsters do less damage to negate the monsters do more damage, right? All the other ones have some kind of balance. This one says action speed cannot be reduced below base value, right? So even if you have the action speed is reduced by 20%, that's not going to do anything, right? It might, seem like those are supposed to counter each other, but, cannot be reduced is cannot be reduced. And so that one gets its own category because it is dangerous with no ability to counter it with a boon. And so definitely want to only take that one if you have just absolutely overwhelming DPS and are not going to care that the boss gets a little more time to do their thing before you are obligated to kill them or else deal with some more attacks. And so that naturally brings us to the next category, which are the afflictions that will make the run more dangerous, but can be countered, right? And so these are the things like the Spiked Shell and the Blunt Sword, right, that increase the monster's EHP. These, of course, can be countered by the boons, right, the Sanguine Vial and the Ornate Dagger. And when you have all of these together, they more or less cancel each other out, right? 2 of them in either direction will also more or less cancel each other out. It might be 10 or 15% EHP reduction or increase either way. But basically, these are dangerous only if you don't have overwhelming DPS, right? Once you get to that 60 million damage point or so, right, you can basically first phase things, even if you have both afflictions and neither of the boons. Then, of course, we have traps are faster. This one is exceptionally dangerous when you get towards that 4th floor, right? The entombments. It even makes the battlegrounds more dangerous with the fireballs falling faster. This one extremely dangerous unless you're ready to do some serious gaming. And so I would very much recommend avoiding this if you don't have the traps are slower boon to counteract. Next, we have the Honed Claws, right? This one makes the monsters deal more damage. Obviously, that just makes the Sanctum a little more deadly. And so while we can counter that with the monsters do less damage, right, until we have that, probably want to avoid this one, though it is certainly possible to still tank some chip damage here and there, even if you do have to pick it up. Then we have the ones that really impact your resolve. The Hungry Fangs, the Mark of Terror, the Dark Pit. They usually get counteracted by just having lots and lots of inspiration and not really caring, even if you take a random hit here or there. But, you know, you may get on a run where you just don't happen to luck into a lot of inspiration and you're giving away a lot of your resolve to the pacts. And so these can get a little bit dangerous, but of course, you know, they can be negated by the boons that make the monsters do less resolve damage and the traps do less resolve damage. So, you know, once again, these are in that category of make the run more likely to fail, but can be countered. The last affliction in this category is the Worn Sandals, right? Moving slower is obviously going to make the Sanctum a little tougher, not just in the trap rooms, but also to get those clean engagements off on the various guards. And so, you know, if you don't have the increased movement speed boon, probably going to want to avoid this one, though obviously it is not a guaranteed run killer. It's going to make things a little tougher. The next category are the ones that threaten to make the Sanctum less rewarding without, you know, completely killing it, like those ones in the first category, right? This is the chests don't drop coins, less coins found, that sort of thing, right? These obviously, you know, can be countered somewhat by the, you know, more coins found boons, but what you really want to make sure you're absolutely avoiding is a deadly combo where monsters do not drop coins, and instead you're losing all of your coins at the end of the floor, right? If you do that, then you will have no way of buying the end of floor offers, and that is pretty sad. But in general, right, you know, it's okay to take some of these over the course of the run, especially later on once you actually have the gold foundation that you need established. Once you have that merchant price reduction boon, you start needing much less gold overall, and so these become much safer. But right, you know, avoiding them early on can be a pretty good idea. You know, the 30 coins per room can be pretty substantial very early on, especially if you're just not getting a lot of chest reward rooms. And so these are, you know, they get their own category because they're not going to kill the run the way the other reward reductions will, but they definitely do make it a little more difficult to extract that, you know, maximum juice out of the Sanctum. Then there are the ones that are, I guess, technically a tiny bit dangerous, but I really just take them without any regard. Though, you know, they have a non-zero effect, so I'll separate them from the ones that do actually nothing, right? And so the ones in this category would be, you know, minus 100 max resolve, lose 5% resolve on room exit, the Voodoo Doll, which, you know, can be dangerous, but most of the time you're just going to be giving away all of your maximum resolve anyway, and so it's very unlikely that you're going to be on that, you know, below 50% resolve scenario. And then, you know, the rest, right, are literally nothing, right? Either they're affecting resolve recovery, right, which is not happening with the chalice runs. Gargoyles are a total non-factor for BV. They cannot get through the defensive layer that is Blade Vortex itself. You know, 90% reduced light radius. You know, once you know the layouts, that's not affecting you whatsoever. Rooms are unknown. Anything that takes away my resolve, mitigation, evasion, Aegis, right? Those are virtually nothing. Liquid Caritas only gets into this category when you have a Mage Blood. Obviously, if you don't, that gets bumped up a few notches into the maybe even into the Fiendish Wings category, right? Because there's no real counter for that. It just means that you are probably not going to be wanting to use your flasks. So this one, you know, a bit of a curveball, but you know, for me in this current build state, it is a more or less a non-factor. I think that covers all of them. If I left anything out, I will try to answer questions in the comments. All right, and now for the Sanctum itself. I'm going to be showcasing a merchant-based strategy. This is one of the higher investment versions of Sanctum farming. There are definitely ways you can make a lot of currency here without needing such startup capital, right? Even if you can just clear the Sanctums and you have a couple divines on hand, right? You can farm the Sandstorm Visages. You can do what would be the equivalent of an Alchemy Go, which is just, throw in a tome and just try to do your best in there, and you'll probably at least profit, right? If not make crazy amounts of divs per hour. You also don't need to have these. Merchant has 2 additional choices relics, right? Obviously these are the best if you can afford them, but even I have settled for one that only has a single additional choice, and went ahead though and got the 7% reduced prices on that one. The reason that we really care about these reduced prices is that this is an example of what I would call, infinite scaling, right? There's like additive scaling, multiplicative scaling, exponential scaling. Merchant price reduction is infinite scaling though. And what I mean by that is that we're not doing a multiplier. We are really making a bigger subtraction in the denominator, right? We're doing 1 over 1 minus, right? And then x, where x is our reduced merchant cost. And the bigger we can make x, right, the bigger that number is going to get. And I would call that number our buying power. If you could somehow get to 100% reduced merchant prices, right, you would have infinite buying power. You could buy literally everything all the time immediately, right? You would never have to, you wouldn't even need any coins at all, right? It would be truly just infinite buying power. So rather than thinking of it as this sort of additive scaling, right, what really matters is the fact that with this base 29% merchant price reduction, getting that 50% boon is going to take me not to, double the buying power, right? Normally, right, you get that 50% cost reduction boon. That would double your buying power, right? Suddenly everything's half as expensive. You can buy twice as much. So with this baseline 29% reduction, my buying power is 1 over 1 minus 0.29, which is about 1.4, right? So I have like 40% increased buying power with this. But when I get that extra 50%, now instead of doing 1 over 1 minus 0.29, we're doing 1 over 1 minus 0.79, right? And that is going to be 4.7. So instead of going from a multiplier of 1, right, with no price reductions, and that 50% taking us to twice the buying power, now we're going from 40% increased buying power to almost 5 times the buying power, right? So you'll see when I actually do hit that boon, if I'm able to get it in this run, the prices will go extremely low, right down into the, the 20 to 50 range when they start, in the almost 200 to 300 range. So what we're going to do with all that buying power is just buy all the boons we can, right? And that's where the additional choices come in. The additional choices are going to make it so that not only are we more likely to see that 50% cost reduction, but we are also going to be able to hopefully completely exhaust the supply of available boons and force it so that the merchant has to sell the boon which doubles our rewards, right? That Mirror of Fortune. The merchant is bound by Sanctum law to offer any boons that you don't currently have before she starts offering just more relics, right? Eventually, if you do actually buy all the boons, you'll see she'll start selling, just tons of relics. But she's still obligated to sell all minor boons before she starts filling out her choices with those relics. The major boons, right? They have different rules. She's not obligated to sell you those. But of course, reducing the pool of those so we can get that sacred mirror and get the triple doubler is something we're also going to hope to do, but certainly much less likely that we're going to be able to force that the way we can force the Mirror of Fortune by buying out all of the minor boons. So this is, the merchant-focused strat, and the reason we care so much about that Mirror of Fortune is this, right? The Gilded Chalice is going to duplicate our random offer rewards, and by making sure we keep that offer sheet clean, right, we're going to take only divine orbs until maybe the end of the 4th floor, once we've seen all the possible rewards and we know that we're not going to be cluttering up our rewards with 4 things that we might not want doubled when there are divines in play. So if we do see a divine reward, right, hopefully we're going to be able to turn either 2 divines into 4 divines by buying the Mirror of Fortune, and then that will turn that into 8 divines because each of those will be duplicated by the Gilded Chalice, right? So that's the real meat of the strat, right? Is every divine reward that you see has a very high chance of turning into 8 divines. So hopefully we get to put that on display here. Let's get it going. Right, so not even going to look at the choices yet because there is no choice in this first room, so it's just kind of a waste of time to do that. That was a bad example of proper engagement technique. I should have blinked up to the top there. Really, I should be turning off some of these visual effects. Right, if you're just learning the Sanctum, I would definitely recommend turning some of those things off. Right, so here we go. Perfect example of a choice that changes as you get to higher and higher investment levels. Right. Normally, these would be bad news if you were like doing the minimum viable Sanctum. Right. If you have about 9, maybe 6 to 10 million DPS, right, you can probably first phase, kill that final Lycia form before she does her lightning attack, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid, right? We don't want to have to deal with that. We're super glass cannon mode, so we can just pump our DPS, and so we want to make sure we take her down before she does her lightning circles. So if you don't have overwhelming amounts of DPS, right, you want to avoid these. But once you do have that, like 40, 50, 60 million DPS, right, then you can start taking these and not really caring. Even if you don't have the boons yet, you should be doing more than enough damage, right? And so here we're going to try to apply the fundamental principles of the Sanctum, right? We're going to try to stay wide. That is the most important thing, right, is that we make sure that we're not bottlenecking ourselves, right? If you look at these paths, right, most of the time, right, they're pretty spread out and they kind of move in some different directions. But once in a while, right, they will really concentrate themselves towards a certain room. And you might even find a situation, this might be a perfect example, actually, right? Now, you might think, okay, yeah, I got lots of options. But if you go to this room, you might as well just go to this room already because there's no escape, right? There's no path that leads up above this room, right? So that would be a great example of a long way down the line bottleneck where just by going here, right, we are locking ourselves in to this room. And that is extremely dangerous, right? What if this room has one of the S tier super deadly afflictions that are going to be run killing for us, or, make this run just extremely unrewarding? So, this great example of exactly the reason why you want to try to look ahead and stay as wide as possible, right? So in this case, right, these are more or less the same, right? It's, 10% one way or another, depending on which boons you have and how these actually play out. But, they're more or less the same. I think, 50% more life is slightly easier to deal with. And we also know that, right, if we are going to go here, right, it's the same thing. This is going to also lead us down to that bottleneck. So even though this is 2 chests in a row, right, it's going to be very hard to justify going to this room knowing that this room is still going to be invisible to us, right? So I'm actually going to go up here. That's going to keep me very wide in case this is the column that has lots of afflictions in it, right? I'm not sure which of these columns is going to be the guaranteed affliction column yet. And so, right, I'm going to go up here because that is going to give me all 5 of these as escape options. once I have to choose between these. Right, so even if you have to give up a chest, right, you know, this path has certainly one less chest visible than that other path did. You know, it is just so important to make sure that you are not forcing yourself into a situation where you will have no choice but to take whatever affliction is on the table, right? So here, you know, I don't really want to deal with volatile anomalies in this one. It'd be nice to get that also, right? You know, it's still heading down towards that bottleneck. At least once we're picking this one, we actually, no, we still wouldn't be able to see this when it's time to pick this, right? We'd only be able to see this. And so, yeah, I'm just going to stay up here while I will still have a couple of choices, right? You know, there's an argument to be made that if I go here, right, I'd have 3, but, you know, this is pretty safe. And this is, you know, a lot of coins as well. And so I'm going to go up top here. Right, and eventually, you know, these decisions become second nature, right? They become much faster. You're not going to have to talk yourself through it in such a lengthy fashion every time. Of course, you know, I'm obviously doing that for educational purposes in this one. So, you know, please don't judge me too much for how long this run is going to take. All right, so that's right. Perfect. This is an example of an affliction that is nothing, right? There's actually no danger for it. I'm not going to get hit, and if I do, it's not going to be that often. And so losing 20 coins, not a big deal, right? And so because these two are equivalent width, right? No matter what, we're going here, and we're going to have a choice of both these two. So we're good. We will go ahead and go to the scriptorium, right? Same reward, because this is just going to be slightly more coins. Even though this guy cheats, and he's a little dangerous if you're not used to him. Right, you just gotta believe in the ball. And yep, okay. Right, if you go really fast, he hopefully doesn't cheat and get his attack off, but there will be times when it really feels like you have killed all the statues, and then he takes a second and then does an attack. So, you know, keep your head on a swivel when you're fighting him. Right, and now, you know, same thing, right? It's just the library. We're just gonna make sure we are, you know, blinking and charging over all these traps, engaging the guys from the maximum distance we can, right? Not really caring about any of the like ghost dogs or anything like that, right? Keeping an eye out for maybe some of the ones that will throw stuff at us, right? The ghosts that have the throw, right? They're a little dangerous. But for the most part, you don't have to worry about those either as long as you're moving fast. Right, so here, right, obviously I want to go here if I can, and it looks like I can because even though this is the worst thing, in my mind at least, because, you know, why even bother going to the Sanctum if you're just going to get jerked around and taken to wherever? And, you know, imagine seeing divines and not being allowed to get them. Like, that sounds awful. But this is fine, right? This is kind of a crutch, right? Training wheels a little bit. I don't really need it, right? I have the corrupted blood immunity already. This is, you know, a just in case thing, right? I have the steel skin as well for bleed. So, you know, this is fine, especially given that I have the regenerate life per second. So I am, though, gonna, right, eventually take this off when I actually do get there, because I don't even want to be tempted to push it. Oh, another thing perhaps worth mentioning, right? I was able to take the 10 chaos offer, right? You want to keep your offer sheet clean, but it is okay to take end of floor rewards on the first couple of floors, right? Because those will always be gone before divines are possibly in play. But once you're on that third floor, right? Even you know, taking those rewards after the second boss, right? If those are given for the end of the floor, I would want to. Oh, God. if after that second boss, I wouldn't take third floor, end of third floor rewards because, right, I can maybe see divines and maybe double those divines, right? You never know when that's going to happen, but it can start happening on the third floor, right? So I want to make sure my offer sheet is clean once I get there, but for now, it's fine, right? This is okay. This is obviously one of the worst things possible, and this is also fine, but we are going to go to the merchant because not only is it the merchant, and this is a merchant-based strat, but, right, she's also giving us the widest path here, right? We can go to any of these, and we can go to any of these, right? So we are cutting ourselves off from no escape routes, no matter what danger may lie ahead. Right, so making sure, you know, throw a little Veil BV there to cover, just in case, right? And always nice to go back and get a few coins, especially when you're about to go visit the merch. Right, so now we have lots and lots of choices, and the way I prioritize things is the following, right? Obviously, the first thing is merchant prices, right? Merchant prices is the whole thing that we're doing here, right? We're trying to get those prices incredibly low so we can just buy everything. So obviously seeing that is going to enable us to buy all the rest of the boons, and so that's always going to be the first thing that I buy. After that, I would prioritize vision, right? Obviously, full Sanctum reveal is no question, but even the seeing one more room ahead is extremely valuable, right? You want to make sure you take that whenever you can. Unfortunately, we did not get that here, right? So the next most important thing is coins, right? You want to make sure that if you don't have that merchant price reduction, right, you want to make sure you are increasing your coin production so that you can, you know, hopefully afford it when it does come up. And so I'm going to get this. The next most important thing is getting a little bit of inspiration, right? We're going to want to be taking lots and lots of pacts in the later parts of the Sanctum, and maybe even earlier. So we want to make sure we can always sacrifice as much resolve as the pacts are asking us to, which means we need a little bit of affliction. A little bit of inspiration. And so this is perfect, right? The inspiration, when you gain an affliction, we will be gaining a few afflictions at least over the course of this run. I'm going to go ahead and buy that. Next most important thing is damage, right? I want to make sure that even if I get those, you know, afflictions that are giving the bosses more life, me doing less damage, right? I want to make sure that I'm overwhelming that, right? And since they already have more life, I'm going to give them less life. And that should balance that out pretty well. Actually, I think more damage. It's like 5% either way. I forget how the math actually works here. Right, and you know, do I need to get both? Not really. And then the next thing I'm going to look at is safety, right? How can I make the Sanctum safer? So here, the biggest things are, right, making the monsters do less damage. That sounds pretty good, right? You know, I'm calibrated to take most hits, but, you know, maybe I'll take 2 hits in a row because I play exceptionally poorly. So this should help me out there, right? And then we're going to take this because this not only makes just the Sanctum faster, but also makes it easier because, right, we're going to have an easier time engaging those enemies. If we do miss a blink, right, we're going to be able to run to them quicker. And so I'm going to go ahead and take this because it also enables us to take the you are slower affliction and not feel so sad, right? So there we go. That's the priorities list playing out in real time, right? And so here, you know, it's probably good to go for this. You know, getting a lot of coins is nice. You know, they're both similar width, right? I'm going to have 3 options here. So yeah. Right, there's a chance that this will be eliminated if this is bad, but, you know, not that good of a chance. And so I'm going to go ahead, right? No singular bottlenecks coming up in the future. I'm going to hope we get that. That's when the Decrepit Cellar, right? I would recommend just run through. Don't stop and get the chests, especially at first, right? If you're super poor, or if the chest happens to open like that on your cast, then it might be worth it. But definitely at least run through to the end first, because then at least the mines go away, right? And then now you can go back and maybe get a couple more coins and not have to worry about mines at least. But right, I'm doing okay. I don't feel like I'm under coin pressure right now. Right, even here, that's fine. And yeah, I will definitely prefer to go to the merchant rather than this, right? I will always defer to merchants on the first couple floors, right? Because this pact is never going to have divines behind it. And here especially, right, as we thought maybe it would happen, this affliction is a total and complete disaster. So we are going to avoid that. And, you know, even though this one is like A tier difficulty, and I wouldn't recommend taking it if you don't have overwhelming damage, I feel like I do have overwhelming damage, and so I'm going to go ahead and take that. The only question here, you know, is it maybe worth going back and grabbing another couple coins? You know, possibly, but this plus whatever I get here should be enough. But I can at least buy the cost reduction if I see that. So always got to watch out for that guy down there, and also sometimes that guy's rare too, right? But you know, just gonna try to run it, guys. Blink on them as soon as I can. All right, the faster you are, the better. All right, very nice. Yeah, hopefully we can get rid of this like more life or lose resolve. Yeah. Or even this, yeah. Yeah, I'd rather get rid of this than more life. Right? Much more likely that they'll get off a second attack or something because they have this than that they will do it because they have more life. What do we have? Divinya. Okay, so here we go, right? Right, so right now, right, this is 255, right, right, so we're going to see, once I buy this, though, it's not, this is going to go down not to, like, 125, this is going to go down to, like, 60. 45, or even lower, yeah, there you go. So that's good, and then we can even buy this and buy that, which is always nice. Right, and now, I already have a good source of inspiration, so I'm not super worried about that. I would like a little more damage. I would like a little more safety, potentially. Not really much here for that. So I'm going to get this. And then I'll get this just so I can take more pacts, right? Just so I can take more give up, resolve, get inspiration, percent max, you know, pacts. Might as well. Well, another merch. Yeah. But see, right, so because, right, even though these merchants are coming, you know, thick and fast, right, we're still able to afford a ton of stuff because of the buying power and its infinite scaling, right? Slowly approaching infinite buying power. This is worth taking. What did we get rid of? Oh, like the thing I cared about the least. Yeah. Oh, well. Not very lucky there. Right, definitely worth merchant, right? Even though I have like no coins, I'll still have enough to buy like a couple things here. Although the minus 30 is actually starting to hurt a tiny bit now just because I'm so poor. I haven't gotten a lot of treasure rooms. Watch out for exploding crystals. Right, but you know, so this is why, right, I made sure to get that 50% more coins, right, because even that is going to give me enough to buy, you know, at least something here. There we go, perfect, right? And you come back later, please. But for now, this is a very nice pickup, so I will go ahead and do that. Yep. Oh, I made a mistake. I forgot that I had the minor to major. Whoops. Whoops. Oh well, that's fine. I couldn't have afforded two things anyway, and it'll come back. So it really wasn't that big of a mistake, right? Be careful of that later on when you actually are trying to get the doubler going, right? Make sure you don't incidentally have the thing that is going to turn your next minor boon into a major boon. Alright, We got some good coinage here. All right. We go back and get another couple, maybe. All right. I don't know. A little dangerous, but we'll be fine. All right, and now I should have enough to buy just about whatever I see. Or probably a little unnecessarily min-maxy there, but you know, for the sake of this educational run, let's make sure everything was able to be on display. All right, yep, let's get the coins. And so here's where we're going to stop taking end of floor offers, right? Here's where we do want to make sure we are keeping a clean offer sheet, right? Clean. Yep. So perfect example here of, right, room types being unknown, totally fine, right? Might be dangerous when you're learning the Sanctum, but eventually, right, you should be able to do all the rooms without fear. And so, yeah, definitely got to take that. And yeah, because this would be very sad. And we don't need a lot of coins. And also this leads to a pact, right? There's like every reason to take this. It's a merchant. It leads to a pact. The boon is, you know, the affliction is safe. Right? All the reasons. Wait, no, that was our crystal shard anyway. But it doesn't matter, right? Even if the boon, we didn't go here because the affliction was safe. That was like one of the last tiebreakers. All right. Because the other ones were okay too. So here, right, we're just gonna buy like everything, right? I don't have the thing that's gonna turn it into a major this time. All right. Right, so we're just gonna buy everything that's permanent, right? That we can afford here, right? These are temporary, so I will save them last. Yep. Right, but I'm just gonna buy basically everything because I am pretty confident that I will have just enough coins by the time I get to whatever merchant to buy the good stuff if I need it. All right. So here, right, gonna get this packed as we hoped. Doesn't lead us to anything dangerous. Keeps us pretty wide, right? We're still gonna be able to see all three of these rooms. And so then decide if we want to go to this, right? Because now, I don't have... This is, you know, a close call maybe because I don't have wide enough boons that I think I'm guaranteed to hit that. I don't know. Oh, my life is pretty low. I got poisoned. Whoops. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to put on a poison flask, but then also I had to take off the flask because of the life. Because of the thing. Anyway. Right, so here, right, this is why we take those max result, right? Because we want to take those. And, you know, unfortunately nothing good there. Right, is this worth it? No. It's arguable. But I think it's okay. And, yep, so we definitely don't want to go there. Right, so we know we're not taking this pact. Right, because this is just complete and total disaster. Like, run-killingly bad. Like, why are we even here if we don't know what the rewards are? Right, so I'm going to start heading just down towards this merchant and relative safety, right? Because if I try to go up here, I'm locking myself in there, right? Because I'm not going here, right? So there's no way I can get down to here. But if I go down this way, I have my choice of these two. Yep, that's why you have 1200 HP. What? There's a rare guy who I didn't kill? Oh, it's a smoke miner. Okay. Alright, so no need to do that. We can't recover anyway. Alright, and right, so unfortunately we're not going to be able to go up there because of this, but these are both okay, right? Gain an affliction when you use a fountain. really don't even consider that dangerous at all, right? Obviously, regular fountains are not doing anything for us. And the random boon fountains, I'm at a point where I wouldn't want to be taking those either, right? Because I've pulled so many boons out of the pool that there's a very good chance I would remove... I would hit this, right? I don't want to hit that. Should I get a couple more coins and buy some stuff here? Yeah, let's just do that. Oh, no, I know what I need to do first, though. Right, you can actually do this. Right, there's a lot of coins out in these rooms here, so... Considering that I have the -30 thing that has been pretty hefty tax at this point, I am going to go ahead and grab a couple more for safety's sake. That's just about everything. Right. Now we're doing a little better. Right, we want to keep just like diluting the pool, right? That's what it's all about. We want to just dilute. It's worth randoming a major here. Although I should probably just pick up. Nah, yeah, it's worth randoming a major because I can hope to reveal everything. No. Right, and this, not really worth, but right, it's not going to really pay for itself in any amount of time, and yeah, fortunately no divines. Right, yeah, so that one's not going to pay for itself, and it's also temporary, right? It's just going to go away. I would buy that, you know, once I already had like all the boons, right? Then I would start buying that at the very end, right? Just to make sure it's not in the pool the next time I get to the merchant, right? But right now, you know, it's really not necessary. Would just be spending gold that would not pay for itself. Or I guess maybe pretty close. Right, I'm not going to be taking random fountains. I might as well do this because, right, Resolve Ages, you know, I have a tiny bit. Might as well keep it for now. I don't know. Can't hurt. Right, that is the neat thing. Even if you're using Eldritch Battery, you do still get Resolve Aegis from your energy shield. Alright, I have some. Yeah, 5. Right, just because I know I'm not taking fountains. Right, I have too many boons. Way too good of a chance that any random boon that I get will be the duplicate offer thing. And, you know, unless I'm very late on in the Sanctum and know that there's no more merchants left and I already have the good offer, right, that's not a situation I would likely find myself in. Right, so there, right, you know, she spun pretty fast. Right, and that's because I had the action speed cannot be slowed, but, you know, still fairly easy to read the attack. All right, so we're not going to take anything that's not divines, right? We're not going to clog up our rewards with non-divines because we're still hoping to hit that double juice. Where is it? Not here. So we will try to stay wide, right? Merchants and pacts, right? That's what we want. And so here, right, this is going to keep us full width, right? We'll be able to go everywhere. If we start here, we'll have a couple pact options, right? None of these are really that bad. So, yep, easy peasy. Right, monsters impact more resolve. Right, not really, right? Especially given how much inspiration I already have, right? There's really no fear of that at this point. Right, and so here we go, right? We're definitely gonna, right, get the majors while we can. Right, so this is, you know, virtually guaranteed. Not quite guaranteed, right? Because we still had a couple more things to get, like this and this. And this, and this. And now, right, we're going to turn one of these temporary ones into a major. Okay. Still not all-seeing eye. And now we will start buying the temps. These, right, doesn't... Right, you can't keep both of them, unfortunately. So I might as well keep this one. And, yep. So now, yeah, we're down to basically... Right, we have 3 columns of boons. The only things left are the temporary ones. And this, right? So if I see another merchant, she will sell the Mirror of Fortune. 100% guaranteed. So here, right, I would like to get 2 pacts. But a merchant after a pact is also very, very tempting. But, right, you got to get the divines first. You got to get the divines first, right? And we have less damage, so we can make them deal more damage. That's okay. Yeah, I think that's the play. Even though this stays a little wider, right? We're cutting ourselves off 3 versus 4. I think 2 pacts is worth it. And we'll just deal with volatiles. That's again, right? We're going to believe that divines are coming down the line. There we are. Okay, there we go. So we will not be going down here for these pacts. We will be going up here. And, right, we're going to hope that there's another merchant lurking somewhere in these 6 rooms, or at least a pact, maybe. Because, right, even a random boon is very likely to be what we want. Right? So, yep, we will now go back up that way for sure. Right, bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. The haunted spirit wand scares me sometimes in these. Okay, very nice. Very nice. Definitely want that. These are worth like 30C. What do we have? What do we have? Nice. See, so this is like, we are going to get 8 divine. This is, I'm actually going to go to this instead of this, right? I could go here and then here, but if I go here, there's a chance that not only will I get the double, I'll also get the triple double, right? Whereas this, right, is going to be 8 divines guaranteed. This is also going to be 8 divines guaranteed because she has to sell the Mirror of Fortune. Right, she has to sell it by the laws of the Sanctum. And, right, so you can see, right, she's already at the point where she has to sell tons of relics. Because even when she sells all of the temporary ones, right, it's still the same. Yep. Still, the whole pool is gone. Right, yeah, that one doesn't really matter, but right, I'll buy the gift again, right, just to keep it out of the pool for a little bit longer. Yep. That's what we want to see. So we have plenty of coins. Don't need anything there. Yep. Right, we don't want to get a random boon or whatever right now anyway. Even if I did have the major thing that gives me a random boon for using a fountain. Right, because we gotta get to the divines first. I don't like that rare guy survived. Okay, that's okay. He was kind of tucked away in a corner. And divines, please. All right, and now we will make what might seem like the right. You might not like it, but this is what peak Sanctum looks like. Right, because I know I'm going to see not only the Mirror of Fortune, right? I know I'm going to see the thing that turns a minor boon into a major boon as well, which I don't have yet, right? Okay. right? This had to be here. And there we go. And that's why we do it, right? So this is here. And then we're going to duplicate. I swear to God, this is the first take of the video. I swear. Get a random offer reward. Yes, please. All right, so now the 4 is turning to 8, but now that is going to turn into 16. Right, we can't, there's no like other way to double it before or get another one before. So yep, we will just do that. And there we go. And that's how with a few simple boons, you can turn 2 divines into 16 divines. Yeah. All right, might as well do this, you know. Sure, cannot receive minor afflictions. Great. Cool. Right, these unfortunately are only ever eye level 83, right? So they will never have 2 room reveals or 2 choices, so they're not going to be that valuable. But they can have 1 choice and price reduction, which is pretty good. All right, so I'm just going to keep it easy. Lost Catacombs, please. Desecrated Crypts, right? If I'm gonna screw up and die, it would be because I get hit by a bunch of fireballs in the Desecrated Crypts. All right, so here, right, is where I have a system, right? To beat Lycia, there is an easy engagement pattern, right? What you want to do, I'm going to go down to the wall, right? I'm going to see that my BV is hitting her, and then I'm going to blink to the wall behind her as soon as she starts moving. And we'll see that here hopefully play out. All right, yeah. All right, so I get my BVs up, move in, get right down here, and now as soon as she moves, I'm going to blink to the wall. Oh. Blinked a little too high there. Not the best example, right? I want to blink to that. And then my BV will hit her on both sides, right? That's what I should have done, right? Because she's like right here, right? So I should have been like here, hitting her, and then blinked to there. I blinked a little too high, so she got out of range, right? But if I was here, it would have been hit. All right, and then this one, right, it's kind of a joke. Lycia's big failing is that she just starts attacking too quickly, right? So whichever direction you're in, she's just going to attack in that direction. You just can quickly run to the other side. Right, do I need to cast BV this often? No. Will I? Yes.
Derivative.
There we go. All right, so, you know, all right, I saw she had the fireballs. And the only reason she got off that second attack's almost, right? She didn't even get it off, right? She started channeling. It was just because of the fiendish wings. Right. And anyway.
That I love. I absolutely love.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Right, not every run is going to go that well. You will have runs where even if you get the all-seeing eye, you will see no divines at all because RNG. But, you know, pretty often you will get a run like that. It is, those might not be the rule, but they don't feel like much the exception either, right? They pretty standard to at least get, you know, the doubler. The triple doubler, much rarer. But I've gotten several of those already this league. Where I turned 2 divines into 16.